Well,
and
I
then
mean, he
Momoshiki
says
has
that
the one direction.
he says
He
that
sees
when a
one
future
direction.
doesn't happen, that it's snuffed out. We don't have to get into this now. I want to like really understand what that means. Like how does that actually work? Because if we could like hypothetically stick that into this little bit of a rewrite here, maybe Boruto was in those futures that was snuffed out, and then he time traveled to this possible future. And like if there's only 10 futures, if he's on like the 8th or ninth one, that would be so impactful. He's seen the future destroyed 8 or 9 times or whatever. It's like
Well,
he
I
only
mean,
has
I
one or
think the
two chances
stuffing
left.
out is just. I mean, I think it's simple. I think you do understand it. It's just like, let's just say, to make it simple, there's two futures. So in one future, Boruto chooses to go to McDonald's, and the other future, he chooses to go to Burger King. And because he goes to Burger King, he marries Ada. And if because he goes to McDonald's, he marries Sarda. Okay, so then when Boruto goes to McDonald's, he stuffed out the future where he marries Ada. It's just not gonna happen now.
But
He's
okay,
gonna marry
but then
Sarda.
okay, what you just did there, you're equating the phrase snuffed out to not going to happen. What I'm wondering is it that, or is it, I don't think you've seen the movie, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse? I think it's the second Spider-Man movie.
Into the Spider-Verse.
Okay, well, that's the first one. Yeah, there is a sequel. There's 2 movies out of the 3. Okay, yeah, okay, it is Across because Beyond is the third one. So in Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, we essentially see what could be potentially happening here with the snuffed out, to where it's one of the characters is like in their literal reality or whatever, and it just like fades to black. It just ceases to exist because something happens. And so like I'm wondering, did that timeline exist, and then what happened to it?
I mean, as of right now, I don't think there's separate timelines. I think it's just possibilities. So when they say snuffed out, I think it just
doesn't happen. Yeah,
that's how I'm not going with the.
But snuffed out is such a specific phrase,
based on
and
the
it's so
existence
brutal.
of the theoretical sense, but because it was in Koji's mind,
yeah,
I'm gonna stick with the. It's a possible future. That's what they're saying. I don't think the timeline literally exists. It's that it theoretically could exist.
I know, but that's weird because of the time traveling turtle and all the other time traveling elements. Freaking time slip arc. Let's just say that.
But again, Ikimoto's not using that. I'm sorry. I hate it. I know. I want Urashiki.
I know, but it's in the universe, regardless if Ikimoto uses it or not. He's not using Denki, but Denki still exists, even if he's not canon to the manga. So, like, if Boruto in the time slip arc, if he killed Naruto and then he travels back to the current timeline, is he traveling to the timeline where Naruto's Hokage and nothing changed and it's just that other timeline that got snuffed out? Or does that retroactively change his timeline to where when he travels back to the current timeline, Naruto died 16 years ago, or really like 20 something years ago? But you get the point.
Well, it's already weird though, because in that flashback arc, they make that like paradoxical thing to where Boruto mentions the whatever the thing he says, the thunder train to Denki's dad on accident, and he's like, oh, that's a great idea. And then you have to ask, okay, did the thunder train get built sooner than before? Did it not exist at all? Is this a case to where it's like Aaron, to where Boruto always goes back in time? That's why Denki's dad always makes it, we don't know, because they just do it because it's funny, and then they don't address it afterwards, so we don't know what actually happened there.
But like,
and without knowing that, it's hard to say, where this.
But like, let me put it in these terms, because this will make it very simple to understand. Let's say that we are in Naruto for whatever reason, or we're Shikamaru, whatever. We're standing next to Naruto before Boruto and Sasuke and Urashiki used the time traveling turtle. Nothing's changed in the timeline. Naruto's right there. Timeline hasn't been altered or warped yet or whatever. We're standing next to Naruto. We're looking at him and we see him. Boruto and Sasuke use the time traveling turtle with Urashiki and go back in time. They change the past or whatever. Naruto dies. What happens to us? What do we see? Do we just forget Naruto existed as he fades out of existence? Does he fade out of existence? Does all of existence fade out of existence as it fades to black? Do we die? Like, how does it
See, that's the thing I don't know, like, in terms of how they would write that.
Exactly.
They could write it in any of these ways they want. They could do it the way to where it's just another timeline does in fact. They could do it to where Naruto just disappears and we forget. It could be like, who knows? Like, we just don't know what they would do. Because usually, I'm going to use our Family Guy as the example. One of the episodes, they keep going back in time and changing things, and then it always messes up the future. They start like World War V and shit.
I've seen that one.
Stewie and Brian are going back and forth.
Yeah.
So they show up in the future and then see the aftermath, as opposed to other people just seeing it happen all of a sudden. So
exactly,
we don't really know what they're writing.
But like, how I'm thinking
applies to Boruto and Sasuke, because we were following their perspective.
Exactly. It's just weird though, because like, obviously what they're going to in directions, the future has yet to be written. But the past and the present, it's written. It's already there. So it's like, when you use time travel to go into the past, to change the past, you have two presents when you travel back to the future, two presents that have been written. So you have two different timelines. So when Koji says one is snuffed out, does that other one no longer exist? Or what happened to it? What happened to the people in the timeline? Or does the timeline assimilate, converged into the new timeline to where it never actually existed? But then how they get there in the first place? Like, there's a lot of weird things with that.
Yeah, it's just depends on how they want to write it at that point. There's no way for us to know which it would be because they don't address it. Because
at that point, it's no longer potential. Because the future, there's potential. There's one timeline. There's two ways the timeline could go, but it's only going to go one of those ways. It's you're walking down one path, and then you reach a fork in the road, a split path. You go down one road. But if both roads have someone down the road, and then you go with one of the roads, what happens to the person on the other road?
I mean, it feels like on one hand, because of what they do with Denki's dad, Boruto didn't change anything about his timeline. But on the other hand, the arc went out of its way to have, Sasuke erase the memories of Jiraiya and Sasuke, and then they had Shikamaru and Konohamaru situation, like, oh, it was actually just some months, or we were just training and it scared them. Like, they tried to address all the loopholes except for Denki's dad, which makes you think it would have affected it if they weren't so careful or so lucky. But then they don't do it with Denki's dad, which makes it seem like nothing actually mattered.
But I think, well, first of all, I do think they're just throwing that in as a little Easter egg, and they're not trying to make that matter.
Exactly, but that's the thing, though.
Just a little fun nod.
That means they're not actually trying to pay attention to how it affects things, so we don't know. Like,
but I do think they did change the past. Otherwise, Neji was right. Like, I don't think in Boruto episode 1, in the original timeline, Denki's dad figured it out because of Boruto. I don't think that happened in the original Naruto series.
Exactly. So what I think it should be is kind of like Koji's future training, to where Denki's dad figures it out sooner.
Exactly.
Because of Boruto.
Exactly.
But then, obviously, that's not really going to change a whole lot, so we're not going to see it. They're not going to emphasize it. I mean, they could have had a line saying, like, hypothetically, at the beginning of the arc, they just say, oh, the Thunder Train was created 16... Like, there's an advertisement on the Thunder Train when he goes to the Sand Village. It says, oh, we've been traveling across the country for 16 years. And then Boruto comes back and he sees that sign and it says 26 now. And you can say, hey, that's because of Boruto. That would be cool if they did that, but they didn't, so.
Exactly. But again, then what happens to Denki's dad, who made it from the 16 years timeline? There's two versions of Denki's dad here. Or what gets even more interesting, because we're talking about people like in this fixed timeline or whatever, what happens to that Naruto? But let's just say hypothetically, because we have people time traveling, Boruto and Sasuke, using the time traveling turtle with Urashiki. Let's just say there's two time traveling turtles. Let's just say Kawaki got his hands on one as well. And he just happens to be in a timeline when Boruto and Sasuke go back in time to change the timeline. Because Kawaki has a time travel turtle, let's just say he's already time traveled. Does he get affected if he's in the timeline that Boruto and Kawaki, or that Boruto and Sasuke change? Or because he's already time traveled and has time travel with him, is he immune to the effects? Does he get thrusted into a current timeline? Like, how does it work with that? That's also another possibility.
The same would just apply to Boruto and Sasuke, so I feel like the problem is he's using a different turtle. But if I had to pick, he would just be in the same boat as Boruto and Sasuke and Arashiki. You know, like he's time traveled. But the problem is, if he's in a different era of time travel, then I don't know that one. Like,
Yeah, I don't know. Like, let's just say hypothetically that we are right, and there's one timeline, and then Boruto and Sasuke went back and made a second timeline. Let's say that stays true. Let's just say hypothetically, Kawaki gets the time traveling turtle an episode earlier and travels to Shippuden. There's still one timeline. And then he changes whatever there, or he doesn't have to do it. He just exists there for however long. Boruto and Kawaki go back to Naruto Part 1 and then change that timeline. What happens to Kawaki, who's not in the present, but still after Boruto and Sasuke when they changed the timeline? So there was one, and then they changed it, but Kawaki's not in the present, he's in the past, but he's still in the future compared to Boruto and Kawaki, if that makes sense. Or Boruto and Sasuke.
I feel like
but he can't change it that way.
Already there when Boruto and Sasuke changed their thing, but Kawaki's already in Shippuden when Boruto and Sasuke changed Part 1. I think Kawaki just nothing changes for Kawaki. He just has a separate timeline. So the Boruto Sasuke one makes a new timeline that doesn't affect the one Kawaki's in. Yeah. So
what I'm saying is that Kawaki gets there before Boruto and Sasuke change the timeline. So let's just say that Kawaki's talking to
whatever Boruto and Sasuke do is going to affect Kawaki.
Interesting. But then if they just live in that timeline, they're living in two completely different realities essentially, which is weird and interesting.
Yeah.
So then Koji's wrong. The timeline doesn't get snuffed out if that's the case.
But that's also me using what I think the Boruto anime's logic would be, as opposed to Koji's 10 direction situation.
Okay. Because, like, just to explain it further, I think we're on the same page.
What Koji means is that the future just won't happen, but...
Yeah. But just so we're on the same page, so you can change the future, whatever, 10 directions, Neji's wrong. If you go back in the past and you change it, it does change the future, whatever. So, let's say... timeline of events. First thing that happens, Kawaki goes back to Shippuden. He's talking to Shippuden Naruto, Teen Naruto, whatever. Boruto and Kawaki, after that, go back in time to Naruto Part 1 and kill Kid Naruto. After Kawaki's conversing with Teen Naruto. What happens to the Kawaki conversing with Teen Naruto? It keeps happening?
Well, actually, something I was thinking about is, because this wouldn't make Neji wrong, is... what would be an interesting route, at least, is you go back in time to change the past, but you will always fail. You can't change the past. They could do that narrative thing, because it's like, well, Neji thinks about the future, not about the past. You just can't change the past. So anyone who tries to go back in time and change the past will just always fail for whatever reason, so that the past always plays out the way it always did, because you can't change it. They could actually do that.
It could be
Arashiki losing. The universe will find a way to make that happen. But Naruto will not be killed by Arashiki.
It could be whatever divine omnipotence that Juro was talking about. But I don't know. I mean, it seems like it's possible. Like, if Sasuke just chose to Amaterasu Kid Naruto, I don't think the universe is undoing that. It's possible.
See, the thing is, we don't know. Like, hypothetically, is Jiraiya just gonna, like, summon a toad and block it or something like that?
I guess. I don't know.
It feels ridiculous, like, at a certain point, but, like... they could just write a thing to where that just does happen.
Yeah. I mean, well, realistically, they would have to, because let's keep in mind, Naruto isn't real. Even though we're so invested in the series, it's not real. It's written by people in reality, our reality. So the writers will write it a certain way. They're not just going to kill Naruto like that. So
exactly. So... that
in a way, he's safe.
I mean, fundamentally, what I just said is how they would write it.
Exactly. The problem would just be the in-universe explanation.
Well, unless there is just Shibite making sure, like, oh, wait, Sasuke, you're not killing anyone.
Guess so, yeah. Juro was right.